What's up everyone, I'm Steph and this is the episode 3 of my journey on the in vitro fertilization. In this episode I'm going to talk about the appointment that my husband and I just had with the nurse who explained to us everything that I am going to go through on the next weeks. If you want to check the previous or the next episodes of this vlog about IVF, you can check on the information button here. And if you want to skip and go directly to a specific topic I'm going to be talking about in this video, you can just check the info box below. There's an index. First of all, I was nervous before going to this appointment because we'll mark a line between all the checks that I had and the actual thing happening. I had a lot of insecurities, a lot of questions to ask to the nurse, especially because I read a lot on the internet about the IVF procedure, and I was concerned about the infamous ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, which apparently affects more than 30% of the women going through the IVF. So with all this anxiety and all this tension, we went to this appointment, and I am very glad and happy to say that the nurse who took care of us, Nikki, was so good. She explained everything step by step, sharing with us all the positive things, being very thorough in explaining all the passages. The way she explained everything kind of put me on a positive attitude. So before talking to her, I was thinking more of what if the IVF won't work. But by talking with her, now I am a little bit more relaxed and reassured. Do you know what I'm saying? So there's a difference, there's a tiny line that divides the positive attitude from the negative or neutral attitude in tackling and facing this. Another good thing that reassures me is that she told me that I can keep going with my life like normally. I don't need to become a couch potato in front of the TV and doing exactly nothing. The only thing that she suggested me to do is to lower a little bit the intensity of my exercise, of my routines, because I like lifting very heavy weights. I like running a lot when I can, so she told me to avoid any high impact exercise. Since I always use like a band to monitor my heartbeat, I can check when if I'm overdoing. I was afraid about overdoing during the injection time because of the ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, but actually she told me that I don't need to fear for that because I will be monitored every 2 days. So instead of waiting this to happen, we are going to prevent this. She also explained to us how to do the injections, and we also tried like some sampling with the injections to make sure that we got what she explained. She wanted to make sure that I can deal with all the procedure in the best mental position possible. We tackled together all the elements that could make me anxious, and I had a full list. I had like a tiny block notes with a lot of questions that I gathered during the last couple of weeks, and she answered them all, and that helped me a lot. Also, the fact that Franz, my husband, was with me helped me feel everything like it's not only on my shoulders. Even if I'm going physically through this, the fact that Franz was with me, was listening what I was listening as well, and in case, I don't know, I missed something or I misinterpreted something, and especially he was focused on figuring out what could make me more anxious during the whole procedure. Their staff decided for me to take the shortest process. Since I don't have any cycle at all, I can start whenever I want. The injections will last about 10 to 15 days, depending on how my body reacts to these hormones, and I am going to have one injection every evening from day 2 to day 6, and then from day 6 till day 10 or day 15, depending on how things go. I am also getting another injection in the morning. This is to make sure that my ovaries can mature as many follicles and ovules as possible, but at the same time, the second injection will make sure that I'm not ovulating and releasing eggs too early. They are going to monitor me every 2 days to make sure that everything is growing okay, not too fast and not too slow. And at some point, they're gonna tell me to use sort of trigger injection, which basically unleash my ovulation. So all the follicles that are maturing will release the eggs. Before the actual release, they are going to put me on sleep for 20 minutes and they are going to get all the eggs. They are going to fertilize them. They make them grow in vitro. Depending on how my body reacts, how good those blastocysts and embryos are, they are going to decide whether to implant again 1 or 2 embryos, and everything will last about 2 weeks. The real waiting game will start as soon as they put the embryos back on me. They are going to give me also some progesterone during this time to make sure that my uterus and endometrius is consistent and is thick enough to allow the embryos to, to grab itself and stays there. Last thing, we signed like a shitload of papers that cover basically everything, from granting all the permissions for going ahead with the IVF till what happens if my husband or I suddenly die. We sort of took care of the legal responsibility of the embryos, and in case something happens. This is something that we have discussed with my husband beforehand. So if you are in my position, I suggest you to talk about that with your partner to make sure that you are ready to tackle this and to take a decision when you are at the appointment with the nurse. We also decided to give all the embryos and the cells that are not useful for our IVF to the research. We reckon that it's our duty to give back to science, because we are having IVF and we have a chance to have a family because of science. And this is it for today. I am very relieved to have had this chat with Nurse Nikki. Definitely, if you are nervous about the most important appointment with the nurse, don't be. My expectations are still pretty low, because I know that 25 to 30% of the women having IVF eventually end up with a successful pregnancy. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope it was useful for you. The next video will be about the first day of my injection time. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you in the next episode. Ciao!